No, so tell me a little bit about it yourself, right? I mean, me trying to summarize it I don't think I would do a very good job. I mean, you've got a breadth of knowledge, right, with working with very large scale organizations, as well as you're on the board from what looks like some small organizations, and you've got a new company, as I understand it, as well, right? That is quite interesting to hear about. So,
Yes, thank you so much, Mark. So yes, I have been. I actually have a really great career, to be honest, right? So first of all, I had an opportunity to work across multiple countries. So I started my career in Eastern Europe. So, but at the same time, I did work with companies in Western Europe. So I did quite a lot of consulting. So then in the United States, working for international well-known companies. So the companies like Dow Jones, Johnson Johnson, Novartis, Dan and Roche. I mean, who doesn't know such companies, right? So these are definitely like for Fortune 200, actually, even like some of them are 100 Fortune companies, and had opportunities to lead really large organizations, up to 1,000 people, including some contractors, if we count everybody, right? At the same time, I'm really innovative person. This is why I love to work with startups and actually helping them to find the market product fit, because I have been going into big companies for big transformative efforts, right? And when you come to transformation efforts, you come into startup environment, so you build a new, you acting as a person who needs to create a new way of business, right? So this is what I really enjoy doing, and I do this from the side of the data analytics and the digital technology.
yeah, and I think one thing that I picked up on as well. I mean, you even have time to teach a course at the University of Arkansas as well.
Yeah, yes, but not just Arkansas. I'm actually teaching in my local university. So,
Oh, nice.
yes, this is something which I always have been enjoying coaching people, and I grew up in education family. So even through me, like my career being with big companies and being the chief data officer. One of my qualities is actually to be the coach for my team and really helping people to grow, right? So I do see there is a big disconnect between education we're having right now. So education needs the same modernization in all companies. So me teaching at colleges is actually for me giving back to new generation of leaders and helping them to build the new skills. So and I really really enjoy this. So these are usually my evening times.
Nice. In your evening time. Nice. Very nice. And so, one of the things, right? I mean, in your leadership positions, right? And, I guess over the last 12 to 18 months, I mean, give me a little leeway, right, on the timing of it, with ChatGPT and AI coming to the forefront, right? I mean, the idea of a chief data officer had existed for a while, right? There's even chief analytics officers and now AI officers. But when we start thinking about some of those roles and some of those challenges, and in the large organizations and even the smaller organizations you're working with, what are some of those challenges that those leaders, experience on a daily basis? Or, what might keep them up at night the problems they're trying to solve and the things that are, like I said, keeping them up at night? I mean, in your experience.
Yes, so Mark, I think it's a great question, but let me start a little bit earlier, right? Because this is something I did ask my audience recently is, what do you want to learn? Do you want to learn like a business case from me? Do you want to learn some successful implementation, or you want to learn about career? It was amazing that my audience actually, they almost like screamed, career. This is what we want to know about, right? So let's step back. So because how we actually and when we actually started talking about the data, right? So if we look back into probably 1990s, so this is where the first data warehouses came in place. And it was considered to be highly technical exercise, the back-end exercise, right? And in best case, business can get an access to some highly irregular type of reporting, right? So technology have been maturing. So then early like 2000, this is where we started talking about business insights, right? So business insights. And now we're maturing more. So then like around 2010, we got into big data, right? Now we gotten into more like AI, whatever. So what is still missing here? So we still see the data and technology analytics as enabler, as a back-end job. So it doesn't matter that companies can say, yes, we have these C roles, now we're going to be data-driven. You cannot be data-driven if you do not consider data and technology a new way of doing business, which means that this is not enabling function anymore. It's really highly strategic function, right? And if we think about a comparison of the Chief Information Officer role and Chief Data Officer role, so Chief Information Officer role at one point was considering that your career is over. This is how people have been spelling the CIO role. So CDO, it's kind of like in the same position, because being in an enabling position doesn't drive it's necessary for the business, or it's nice to have, right? So what is the key barrier? I think the key barrier is actually that we have to imagine the new future, new data future, the new technology future for companies when every employee of the company have a different job. And part of their job is data, right? And if you look at any governance efforts, implementation efforts and everything, this user centricity, the centricity of the person who now needs to make decisions differently, work differently, and actually adopt new ways of doing business, it's missing. It's missing, right? So I think this is the challenge, right? So I would actually see that probably chief growth officers taking the roles of the data and technology leaders could be way better positioned for the future.
So growth officers, a chief growth officer, right? I guess I've heard of that role a couple of times, more as like a chief revenue officer, but I guess that's significantly different, right? But tell me more about a chief growth officer and kind of how they would leverage data, right? Are they looking for different, products to build if they're like a product-centric company, or are they looking for new services to create, right? Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so let's think about is actually how data creates the value, right? So data creates the value by I think this is where everybody is gonna say immediately, or data can create efficiency. Great, okay, data create efficiency. Efficiency is not growth. So if you're the data leader and you claim efficiency as your key exercise, you're going to have quite a really short career path, because you can be efficient for 1 year, for 2 years, okay, maybe 3 years. Year number 4, you're going to be cost, right? So you cannot show the efficiency constantly, right? So you have to put your mindset how to grow business, how you grow business. So you grow your customer base, you grow your sales, you find the new segments, you create new products, you innovate your company, right? So when we talk about the data strategy, so data strategy is not about we're going to create the data management platform, and this platform is harmonized data, we can improve the quality. So data strategy is actually how we can grow by using data. And this is really hard question to answer, right? So basically, this is why I'm saying is the growth officer supported by the data and actually understanding how the data can grow the company could be much better positioned than people with just pure technical experience and knowing the data management.
Makes sense, right? So then the use cases at a high level, right? Might be if you're a drug company, right, that is looking for, what's a new thing in the market to go tackle, and leveraging the data that's out there, both from a research standpoint as well as results from clinical trials or successful drugs they brought to market. Sometimes those generate new ideas and new products, right? I also think about the chief growth officer probably spending a good amount of time with the chief marketing officer, right? Okay. Taking in.
Well, I would not go into the drug discovery area because this is really kind of really its own animal, I would say, right? But I would look into more definitely how to make your business more sustainable, more commercial. So another trend, Mark, I actually wanted to mention, because I give this history of how the transformation have been happening, right? But let's look back. About 2005, this is where we started getting the new businesses came, right? So we started getting more social interactions. So 2006, so this is the first smartphone came on the market, right? So we became more like mobile connected and everything, right? So so there is a parallel track of data analytics leadership which have been developing to support this new type of business models, which is like digital analytics, right? So I got lucky because at that time I was actually at wallstreetjournal.com. The publishing industry have been going first into this digital transformation. And I learned from the beginning almost, what does it mean being the digital first business, right? And in a way, how you do your measurements is actually really drastically different from your legacy business. So now legacy business is trying to grow digitally, but they still have legacy measurements. So what is the difference? Again, the difference is the user. But now we look at the difference as a consumer, right? I actually want to give one example. So I have been working for, I'm not going to call the company name, but so the company is a traditional manufacturing company, and we have been doing unbranded campaign for the products, and it's in the medical field, right? So we have been doing unbranded campaign, and the team who have been doing the measurement of this campaign, it was like a TV advertising, right? Measurement of campaign, they applied the traditional approach, right? So, okay, I advertised on TV, so people actually, came to my website, they downloaded form, they visited the doctor, this is how many prescriptions we got, right? So, and the number was highly positive. So basically, it was really great news. We got 30% increase. So this is wonderful, return on investment, fantastic, right? But look at experience. So people have been landing on the website 90% from mobile device. And they were just going back. So my question is how much we missed because we did not look into this experience of our user, right? And this is where we talk about two different skills, because traditional analyst doesn't look at experience. And people who are analyzing experience don't look at traditional data, right? So when we're talking about transforming the companies to become the digital-first companies, we actually do need people who have a kind of, connecting both sides, right? So this is what I call the product mindset, right? So you have to arrange around the customer experience, but you also don't forget about your legacy metrics as well. right? So this is example was like an eye opening, because I was sharing it with company executives, and they had no idea how much the difference could be if we integrate together experience measures and traditional measures, return of investment.
I mean, that totally makes sense, right? I mean, someone's sitting there on their couch, right, or they're, somewhere else at a friend's house, and they see that advertisement like you're talking about. You quickly go to your phone and say, okay, that's interesting to me. I go there, and I'm guessing what you're saying is that because they weren't thinking about the digital experience of the phone, right? They didn't have a very good experience, and so the conversion rate of someone going there from that TV ad, wasn't very good. So it was very low, right? And so I guess the next steps were, is there an ending to the story where they, drastically or, made some minor changes to their digital experience and the conversion rate went up fairly quickly?
Yes. So definitely, first of all, this was never done before, right? Because this was basically a company the first time actually. So there is a new type of measurement is needed, right? And yes, it was introduced, but I would tell you, if you come to any legacy, is it consumer, is it manufacturing, is it medical, is it banking company, right? So you're gonna see actually separation of different kind of different teams, because you have a business analyst, you have the data engineer, you have a data scientist, right? So they all working on some kind of solution, but there is no user persona or product when they all work together, right? Because you need to bring all these skills together, so then you can answer the question really like fully for this specific user or specific experience.
No, and that makes sense, right? And I guess there's a couple different questions I have within, kind of what you just said, right? There's the skills question, right? What's the next evolution of skills for, those that are listening to this, right? Where should they focus? And then I think the other part of that is, sticking to like the project management, right? When I have a software engineering background, right? And you develop, code widgets, right? And you test and you deploy and, you go out. And I think when it comes to these data and AI projects and everything, there's definitely a software engineering component to it. So maybe we should start there and get into skills. What are some of the challenges around project management or program management, right? When you start thinking about a data project or an AI project that people should consider, right? Or do you have any thoughts on that, right? Because it can't be, I've imagined it can't be the same way you do software engineering. It's probably, even with agile methodology today, that might be a component, but maybe you have some experience that you want to share on that or some thoughts on that as well.
Yes, Mark, it's great. So I would actually separate the project from the product.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So I think project, we kind of learned how to do it. Right. So I think the key difference is that project has a start date, has an end date, has a quite of define the scope, right? And we have been doing projects all the time. So what project is not usually addressing is first of all continuous development, right? So this is what you mentioned, like basically the the user and continuous development and agility, and project is also not considering as I said, like evolution, right? And almost like a trying and finding the best solution, right? So I think what is required to adopt in data is actually required to adopt the product mindset, right? And I was thinking for myself why I personally so much in love with product mindset. So my second degree, I have marketing PhD. So on top of my engineering, I actually have a PhD in marketing, right? I think it's my marketing background, this love to product, which is like a consumer centricity. And but then I read the history about, right? So basically, this product concept was born quite a lot of time ago. I think Procter and Gamble was the first one who has basically said we don't need just regular marketing people. We need product marketers, right? So we need somebody who is going to look end to end, who is going to look evolution, the product life cycle, really understanding the experience of our consumer, right? So when Google, Facebook came in place, they created like a cohort of product managers whose product is software, right? So now we live in the life when the product is becoming more data and, data type of product. And even software product could be significantly data product, right? So if you think about something like Google Map, so Google Map, is it software product or is it actually data product? So I would argue that Google Map is actually data product because it's powered by data. And if there is no data, there is no Google Map, right? So then, if you really want really fruitful career in data analytics positioned in the future, it's better you learn product management skills. So you learn product management skills because it's great. You understand the data quality, you understand the data management, right? But if you don't understand how to create the product out of this, how to properly interview your user, how to do this continuous cycles of development, right? So then, you're not going to get good career, right? On top of this, we got a lot of startups who are currently working on new data products. So because majority of the legacy industries are still living on third-party data, which is outdated, which is really expensive, which is not digital, which is not really like consumer first, right? So there is enormous opportunity for those who are really interested to develop new companies, is actually develop new data companies. And these are some founders which I'm mentoring right now. So I'm actually mentoring several founders who are creating data products and successfully monetizing this products.
And are they just out of curiosity, right? Those startups, are they creating data products? Are they focused on a very specific industry, or is it more of a service? Like you take Google Maps, like you're talking about, right? And Google Maps, I was an early user of Google Maps. I thought it was fantastic. And then you start reading where Google Maps ultimately wants to go, right? They want to get you to your destination, but they also want to advertise, right? And provide a service to the small business user, that wants to buy ads or be a part of Google Maps so that you pop up easily and sell more of their products, right? And their services. So those startups you're mentoring, are they focused on a very specific industry, or how do they know what products to build, right?
So they focus on very specific persona. So industry is too broad, right? So persona, right? Because if let's take, for example, healthcare industry. So there are so many personas, right? So there is a sales persona, there is a marketing persona, there is a public relation persona, right? So there is many personas. So the most successful startups, which I'm working with, they actually focus on very specific personas, and they take a step forward of putting this product into the operations of this persona and helping this product to be as the same as a Google Map, basically guiding this persona what to do next. Like what to do next, what decision you have to take now, what is your next step? The same as Google Map, right? So I'm putting my direction and Google Map is driving me, right? So the same, same data products are doing, right? And again, if you think like big, as I'm saying, like a big providers, you think about like consumer goods, right? So in the consumer goods, a lot of data, it's done by panel, which means that this is not real, not real people. I mean, okay, real people, but it's a sample, right? So, and if you're learning, if you actually doing e-commerce, this data is not useful for you. You need like real-time data, right? So who has the real-time data? Retail, right? So this is why we see an absolute boom in retail for retail media, right? So retail media, these are data products, right? So these are data products which are retail, are creating to monetize this last mile and really help consumer packaged goods companies to position the product in front of the consumer, right? So I think it's a booming time actually. If you have a skill of data and you really understand how to, create product out of it and monetize and who is your persona, it's absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't. I mean, I'm glad you corrected me, and I think I was leading down the product and how industry, but yeah, I mean, it makes sense. You're going to solve the persona, the challenge of a certain person, right, or persona, and that could be across industry, right? And the data sources could be across industry.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, for example, if you take, let's say, like a public relation persona, right? So public relation persona have to manage the reputational crisis. So reputational crisis could happen in any industry, right? So if you have the product to manage reputational crisis, great. So this is the persona you can target. So it's not necessarily the industry, and you might be able actually to benefit from a little bit cross-industry flavor, right? So as an example, if you take like a healthcare, right? And if you look across, hospital, pharmaceutical, insurance, I mean, if you take across, then you're going to get way more benefits if you just focus on one of the vertical.
Okay. That's a really good point. That's fantastic. All right. So one of the skills, right, that someone should be looking at that wants to get into the data and AI world, right, is thinking about this, having a product mentality and focusing on personas. What are some of the other skills that folks should be thinking about, right, and developing?
So I think as simple as a skill, if I think about, is when we talk about the product skill, right? So understanding the problem and ability to formulate the problem of the persona, right? So understanding the problem is not the same as taking requirements, right? So understanding the problem, I would tell you, I rarely see that data technology leaders actually go and see how the real business is working, right? So you could rarely see people go into factories. You can rarely see that people gonna take the sales schools, right? But this is what these leaders have to do, because they have to learn, they have to observe the process, they have to see the real pain which is happening, right? Something like what I'm doing is an example, teaching people is, let's say you need to find the problem, right? So if you come to somebody and ask the question, let's say salesperson, right? And you're going to say, do you use sales reports, right? You're probably going to get an answer. Of course I do. Yes, I use sales reports. Like all the time do it, right? So, but if you ask this person what was the last time you have been looking at this metric, something, right? So then you're going to get a much better answer, because the person is actually going to tell you the context, right? So the context, why would this happening when I was actually using this type of metric, right? So this is really different insight you're going to get, right? So if you have technical skills, and data discipline is kind of technical skills, data professionals need help to learn these interview skills, of understanding the users, asking the right questions, being able to take out of these questions understanding of what type of product is needed, right? So I mean, I'll tell you actually a funny story about this Google Maps. So, because when I was talking to salespeople, and one of the questions I said, okay, during your sales meetings, sales visits to customers, what helps you the most? And then I got the answer, Google Maps. That's it. So it doesn't matter. Okay, you can build the absolutely amazing personalization engine, CRM, whatever. If this tool is not linking to Google Maps, it's gonna be useless, right? So right, but then you like dig deeper, like, oh, interesting, Google Maps. Why Google Maps? Explain me, right? And then they start explaining that customer address is really misleading. So sometimes we get into confused information, right? As your data leader, you start transitioning this like, oh, you know what? Probably we have really bad harmonization of data sources if we give people a wrong address and they don't know where they're driving, right? So so you do need to spend time with such conversations and maybe even do this job and see how this job looks like.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think of two examples, right? When I was on the ground running projects for software engineering, and I used to love the aspect that I was across industries, and the reason is because I love to learn the business aspect, right? Technology is always fun and a little bit easier for me to understand, and once you've got a good foundation, new technology you could just kind of pile on, right? But it was always fun, like when I was working for a large pharmacy, going into the pharmacy, sitting behind the scenes and watching a technician use an application, right? And we thought that it would be much better to build this web interface for the technician because it was easier to read and, in our mind, easier to use. But then you sit there and watch a technician behind the scenes, they've got a mouse, but they never touched it. For 30 minutes, they're using hotkeys that they've memorized, and they're going through that application faster than anything I've ever seen, right? And they're able to do their work, and we could have never replicated at the time any of those hotkeys in a web-based application, right? Or not in an efficient way. And the same thing for a large retailer. We were building a workforce management system, and we didn't really understand the complexities of how big the stores were and how difficult it was for a manager to get someone to tell them to go do something, follow up on it, and everything else, because they had 30 or 40 people in the store. It was a huge store. And so we, that helped us build a better app, a mobile app against multiple channels where they could go to the POS, so they could go to other places to find out what they needed to do next, right? And that's really interesting, right? I mean, you got to, I thought about that as a software engineer, but even as a data person, how is this data going to be used? What, again, going back to that whole persona thing, what is the persona? How do I live that persona so I can develop the best quality solution or the best product, right, as you mentioned, for that customer? That's great.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely. I mean, I think another interesting, just completely opposite, not commercial example. Look at factories. So there are so much opportunities to modernize the factory, right? And I think every single company, any manufacturing is probably looking into predictive maintenance somehow, right? So, and I think AI can do a lot. So there is no question. AI can play a huge role. And people have been trying to do this, right? So I think what majority of data people are not realizing that every process at the factory could be driven, first of all, by different machine. And machine means that there are different vendors behind the machine, different manufacturers behind the machine, right? So the process is not kind of, you can see that the product is like flying of the production line, but in reality, this product goes through specific cycles, and each cycle could be separate machine, separate technology, right? So now let's say you want predictive model for this line. You just cannot do it. You can actually do like for separate parts, right? And and when data science people finally come to the factory and say like, oh, here is what they're going to do. So the answer they usually get is, sorry, guys, you don't understand how the manufacturing is working. right? So I think this is such a kind of sounds like a really obvious, but you cannot imagine how many times I have been absorbing this, right? So like start from the factory, spend the day in the factory, observe exactly as you're describing, nobody's touching the mouse, right? Observe how the work is happening, ask questions, what connects to what, right? Um, then you're going to find this persona or process which you can actually improve and change with your model, right? So this is where we need to put probably like 90% of our effort, because the technicalities, you said that like new technicalities, like 10%. If you already figure out where you're going to be impacting, building the model is not the problem.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's an excellent point. And it's like if you shut down this machine in the middle, you don't just get to shut down that machine, right?
Yes,
How do
exactly.
you skip that machine in the future, right? Is that the idea behind digital twins, right? For like
Yes.
manufacturing? Okay. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. No. Yeah. Yeah. Digital twins has. I think digital twins also has a different applications, right? In manufacturing and in commercial, also digital twins. Yep.
Energy. Yeah, yeah, exactly. No, that's good. That's good. All right. Well, tell me, I mean, like you said, right? I mean, you've got an amazing career, very well-rounded career, right? And one of the organizations that you're currently working with is We Global Studios. Do I have that right? We Global. Okay. Cool. Do you want to tell me more about that? I mean, I read about it online. I did some research, right? And it sounds very interesting to me, and I think it'd be interesting to our listeners as well.
Yes. So it's actually amazing company. I had an opportunity to meet Fernanda, who is the founder, about a year ago, and I'm on the management board of this company, and my specific role is actually helping to build the technology foundation, our foundation, right? So the company idea is behind how we can help underrepresented founders. And when we talk about underrepresented founders, it could be female founder, could be actually by certain age, could be by the region, right, or race, for example, right? So these are underrepresented founders. They usually do not have the same access for capital. They do not have the same access to to fund the business, right? And the platform already has quite a lot of people on this platform. So there is about 300 different companies who have been benefiting in the pilot stage, right? But now we are developing, we call it like V-score. Basically, V-score, it's like a founder score, right? So the founder score, which at early startups, so which is basically seed and pre-seed, can help investors to understand that, yes, I can take a risk to invest into this underrepresented founder, right? So basically, there's no such scores exist, right? So the majority of scores you're going to find, they're going to look at the later stage startups. So they're going to look into financial performance, and there is no financial performance at early stage, right? Exactly, pre-revenue. So there is a lot about the founder DNA. There is a lot about, product market fit, right? And also, some of our startups, they actually technological startups, right? So they have a technology products, and they do require like a different approach, basically, right? So it's fantastic community. Just about a month ago, I did like a learning webinar for them on how startups, like early startups, can benefit from early thinking about the data, because they usually not collecting enough data, right? And this is also the part of the score, how we can start collect data as early as possible, so then we can predict the success of such startups and help them to address the gaps they might have.
Okay. No, so it's almost like I shouldn't say this. I'm looking for a better term, but it's like a matchmaking platform, right? Where you're bringing those who unrepresented, who through various reasons, right? It could be, like you said, an age or a gender thing, but it could also be the fact that they're a first-time founder and they don't have a network, right, as well, right? So it's not limited to those two things. But then you brought in some of these early VCs that want to invest in these types of companies, and they don't know how to find them, right? So you're bringing the data and the relationships together, creating a score to help the VCs understand the risk profile and the possibilities, right? Do I have that right? Okay.
Yes, absolutely. And again, there is no such score exist. So there is no such score exist at all.
That's fantastic. No, that's great. That's very interesting, actually. And then you're leveraging your background as, a data, leader, right? And as well as your marketing aspect, right? And everything else, right? To bring all that together. So that's fantastic. That's fantastic.
And it's different. I think it's also, Mark, what I enjoy personally, it's such a different energy, right? So if you think about these founders, they are really struggling with getting any access to the money, right? So if somebody can think that there is like 10,000 is a small number, for them it's quite a big number sometimes, right? So, but the energy they have, the passion they have, right? So it's so much rewarding. It's really rewarding, right? So basically they, like learning from you, they don't take this for granted. So they actually really, really appreciate all the learnings, right? And again, like my experience working for big corporations and doing a lot of mergers and acquisitions and looking at different companies, right? So this is something they don't fully understand how this is actually happening, right? And for them, this knowledge is something which is so much needed.
Yeah, raising money is not easy, right? It's a full-time job on top of a full-time job that you already have to try to run a company, right? And then the complexities, right, of working with VCs, right? You don't want to accidentally sell off the company before you even get the revenue, right?
Yes, so the legal is another side. So the part of the score actually, the legal side, because many companies they don't even start from the proper legal setup, right? So like we actually assessing that what is legal setup of your company, because this might be limiting you. It might be limiting you, right? So or what the type of resources you have in a company is also could be limiting you.
No, that's fantastic. That's great. All right, so then you've got this huge history, great career. You're working with this company as well, and then to top it all off, you've got a book coming out as well, right?
Yes, Mark. I know this is gonna be like surprise for you because I basically told you just the beginning, like.
Well, I got to be honest with you. Before you get into the book, I'm just wondering how many hours you sleep at night because you got a lot going on, right? So, and you don't have to answer that question.
Yeah, to be honest, this didn't happen like an overnight, right? So I have been spending quite a lot of time and thinking and putting all of this together, right? And as I told you before, I did ask my audience, like, what do you want me to tell about? And enormous feedback was, I want to learn about career. So it's going to be career book. So it's going to be career book, and it's a career book, and it's really with a focus of how the product skills can help data leaders to build successful career and basically position them for taking the roles of AI product managers in the future, right? Taking the role of the data product managers, creating own companies, because I do believe, and this is what I highly advise my master students, consider creating your data companies, because this could be a really great and rewarding opportunity.
No, that's great. So the book's going to be focused on careers, career progression, how to set yourself up for success and the changing and constantly changing data and AI world, right?
Yes, and specifically in product skill.
Do we have a release date? Do we have a name? Do we have a release date or name of the book or anything like that yet?
So there are a couple of working names. I'm not going to share right now. We still working through the final name, right? So my plan, but again, because as you said, I'm just some busy with other stuff. So my plan was to release this book in May. So I'm still on track, but it could be couple, months before and after, right? So I'm working through details right now.
Perfect. Well, consider me one of your first customers for sure. So.
Absolutely, for sure.
All right, as we close out, right, I really appreciate your time. Is there anything that, you jumped to mind as we were talking that you think you should mention, or something I didn't ask that you think I should have asked?
So I would say, Mark, I'm just add for the audience because I know it's some data leaders, technology leaders feel a little bit confused right now, right? So, last year we have been looking especially into technology industry when major builders in this industry like Amazon, Salesforce, and Google have been reducing so many like workforce, right, and people, right? So I want actually to give a little bit encouraging message because there is no future without technology. There is no future without data, right? But at the same time, think about your skill set. So think about your skill set because you cannot go to the same river at the same time. So time flies. There are changes are happening. So you have to position your skill set ahead of the time, the couple years ahead of the time, right? So there are some roles will not exist anymore. And this is just a reality because, again, last week we already saw the software developer, virtual software developer, right? So we're going to see virtual analyst really soon, right? So think about a couple years ahead. So there is definitely career in data and analytics, but this career is changing. And be on top of the changes of your own destiny. So this is going to be my last recommendation.
That's great advice. Yeah, always stay. It's always the thing with technology. Like you said, it changes so fast. You got to stay on top of it. You got to constantly learn. You got to have that thirst for that knowledge, right? And that's important for sure. All right. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time today and talking with me.
Thank you so much, Mark.